individually and collectively, that you live a life being joyous. Now, notice he doesn't say happy. He doesn't say live a happy life, filled with happiness, just be happy. He says make sure you live a life of joy. And there's a major distinction between the two, because happiness is tied to events and circumstances and things and people, whereas joy is not. I mean, for instance, when your favorite team wins, you're happy. When the stock market goes up, you might be happy. When people in your life that you tell to do certain things and they do them, you might be happy. But if your team loses, well, now you're not happy anymore. And if the stock market crashes, well, you're probably not going to be happy. And if people that you've asked to do certain things a certain way ignore you completely, well, you're probably not real happy about that. But when it comes to joy, joy, as Paul was saying, is not attached to any of those things. If your team wins, loses, it's okay. If the stock market goes up and down, it's all good. If the people listen to you or ignore you, it's fine. You can still have a life based in joy, because that life is based on what Jesus has done for you on the cross as a believer in him. So it doesn't really matter about all the other stuff. You can still live a life that is filled with joy as a people individually and as a community gathered together. He also talks about, hey, make sure you are a prayerful people. He says pray without ceasing. Be people who spend time in prayer individually, and be people who spend time in prayer collectively. Now, we've handled the collective part for you as we gather today in worship. We've already said prayer, said another prayer. We're going to say another prayer here, but later. We've prayed collectively. The question becomes, do we, you and I, pray individually when we leave here? Because let's just assume you come to church all 52 weeks of the year. All 52 of them. You're on Mike's perfect attendance list. All 52. But what about the weeks in between? What about the 6 days in between all those Sundays? You might pray while we're here, but have you prayed on the other 6 days of the week itself? I mean, you come and you eat, right? Yes, you do eat, right? I'm betting you don't eat one meal a week. Not a week, maybe one a day, but I bet it's not one a week. If you ate one meal a week, your body wouldn't be nearly as healthy. On the same terms in our prayer life, if you and I, the only prayer time we get is right here as a group, well, you're not nearly going to be as healthy as you could be if you prayed on your own. Because part of what prayer does for you and I individually, when we recognize and we spend time in prayer, at some level, we are admitting our dependence and trust on something or someone that is bigger and greater than us. Now, we may not get to that level right away. I mean, we might go out there and we try everything we can think of and every solution we've come up with and everything we know to do, and we work on every possible outcome, and then we finally get to the end and go, well, I've tried everything else. I guess I'll pray to God. Now, you don't have to acknowledge whether you've done that or not. We know that all of us at some point have gotten to the end of our rope. We've exhausted every possibility out there. And then we think, well, I can always pray just in case. Maybe something happens. Well, at least at that level, there is a recognition that there is someone greater beyond me, and I'm placing some level of dependence. Now, that level, mind you, might be really low once we've gone through all the other things first. But hopefully, as our faith matures, we recognize we only exhaust half the possibilities before we turn to prayer. And then next time, maybe we only exhaust a third of the prayer. And then maybe we feel, hey, instead of exhausting all of my strength and all of my thoughts and all of my wants, maybe I'll just start with being in prayer, which comes with praying on a regular daily basis. And then we might head off some of the crises or the tragedies or some of the inconsistencies or the unknowings, or maybe we'll head off some of the veers that we make off the road by being people who are continually in prayer. Paul also says, hey, make sure you're a thankful people. Make sure that in your life that you are a thankful person. Now, within being thankful, there are a couple of things to consider. One of those is having a healthy dose of humility. Now, in this world and culture, that is absolutely something to strive for, because it is not natural, it is not normal, it's not celebrated, it's not highlighted. In fact, it's just the opposite. Most everything in our culture is all about me and what I think of, what I want, and how I can glorify myself. And when Paul will come along and say, hey, no, being thankful, you have to start by being humble. Being a humble person helps me be thankful, because here's the question for you to ask yourself, and it's the question I ask myself. Well, who am I really? Who am I? Who are you really? You see, at times we forget to be thankful because we fall in this idea that we earn things, we deserve things, we're entitled to things. Well, I should have all these things. And we're like, hey, well, who am I to have that? Or who am I to deserve that? Or who am I when it really comes to all the people? I mean, think about all the people that you know. Who are you really? And with all their education and all the success and all the accomplishment and all the hard work and all the discipline and all the things that we do ourselves, who are we really individually that we are entitled to much more than anybody else? Let alone the billions of people on the planet. Let alone the hundreds of billions of people that have lived throughout all of time. Well, who am I? Who are you really? I mean, we're a child of God, of course, but that doesn't entitle us or deserve us to have anything more than what we have. And so part of what Paul says is being a thankful person, remember, being a humble person, recognizing all that you and I have that you and I had nothing to do with getting. You ever thought about that part? All the things that you have that you had nothing to do with in the first place. I mean, think about it. When you were born, did you have a choice where you were going to be born? In the womb, God come in there and say, all right, now, Bill, where would you like to live? Did he come to you and ask you that? No, chances are not. Did you get a choice when you were in the womb and about who your parents were going to be? Did you get a choice as to who your mom and dad were going to be? I didn't get that choice. Now, maybe you came out and you had awesome parents. Mom, dad were married for their entire life and were awesome and faithful and loved each other and gave you a wonderful household. And then maybe some of us were born into households that were train wrecks and filled with chaos. You didn't get to choose any of that, did you? I didn't. Well, when you were born, did you get to choose your physical features? Nope. You might have chosen some different ones, wouldn't you? Particularly later in life, you might have gone back and said, you know, as I think on it, I would like to have had, you didn't get to choose your abilities, your skills, your talents, your passions. You didn't choose any of that stuff. You didn't choose all the things that came. You didn't choose where you were born. I mean, think about it. Have you ever thought what your life might have looked like had you been born to different parents? You ever consider what your life might have been like had you been born in a different country? Can you imagine what your life might have been like if you were born in a different time period? I mean, we're born in this generation, and this generation, I mean, it's pretty awesome. Could you imagine if you'd been born a couple hundred years ago, how life would be different? I mean, we stress about, does the internet work in all the rooms of the house? Hey, is the third TV getting reception on the football game I'm trying to watch? I mean, is the food actually been cooked properly in just the line? I go through the fast food line. I mean, we think of all those kind of what are first world problems. And if we'd been born a couple of hundred years ago, I mean, there'd be none of that. Most of the effort spent in living was spent trying to stay living, not what vacation spot am I going to go on this trip. I mean, we never think about all the things that we had nothing to do with. Now, granted, you were born with all your skills and talents, and we have all worked hard and been disciplined and faithful, and we've done a lot with it. But we didn't have any choice in it to begin with. And part of what Paul would say is recognizing that where you are is a tremendous blessing, and how quickly sometimes we forget that the places that we are, many of us had nothing to do with much of it at all in the beginning. We've worked hard, been faithful, but we didn't pick it all. We could have just as easily been born in a part of the world where you lived in dirt and you walked around barefooted, and all the time that you and I spend in the morning brushing our teeth, putting our contacts in, doing our face, making sure our hair looks good, looking at our clothes 3 or 4 times, checking it all out, weighing ourselves on the scale. You could save yourself all of that time if you lived in Africa, because you wouldn't have any of that. There wouldn't be any mirror. You'd just be getting up in the morning trying to figure out, hey, where am I going to get some clean water? How am I going to make sure I don't get killed today? Totally different life than the life you and I live. And part of what Paul would say is, hey, it's fine to be where you are, but just make sure you're thankful. And being thankful begins with being humble and having a healthy dose of perspective. Recognizing that my world is not always the world. The things that I struggle with and I face and I deal with is not the same that everybody else is, and the same with you. Your world is not the whole world. There are folks out there who struggle mightily with things that you and I couldn't even fathom. And at times when we get frustrated and we get disappointed and like, okay, got to deal with the family this week and Thanksgiving and what part of the family we're going to go to and how we're going to travel and we're going to get there. And so, I'm sure politics is going to come up at some point and we're going to have to punch somebody out or whatever it is we do. And we think about, oh, well, who's going to not talk to me about this? And they're going to cook this part of the Thanksgiving meal. I can't stand broccoli salad. I'm so tired of baked salad. I'm so tired. And we get to all the things, and most people around the world would go, could I sign up for that, please? Could I swap with you just once? You're going to have a Thanksgiving meal? What is a Thanksgiving meal to begin with? Most of the people in the world would ask that. And yet we sometimes just gloss right over and forget how much we have to be thankful for. And then Paul closes all as he encourages them and says, hey, make sure you're joyous, make sure you're prayerful, make sure you're thankful. And he says, make sure you give thanks in all circumstances. Not for all circumstances, in all circumstances. And why that may not sound like a big deal, that's a huge difference. Because when life unfolds in certain ways, we go through things that are challenging and difficult and painful, and our failures and disappointments, we're not thankful that they are happening. We are thankful in them happening. And Paul says, when you're in things in life, no matter what you're dealing with, there is something that you can find if you look to be thankful for. And you may be sitting there and go, but Paul, you don't live my life. Say, Paul, hey, Paul, you weren't married. You don't get what it's like to have a wife or a husband. You don't get the disappointment that comes with children and grandchildren. You don't get all that kind of stuff. And Paul would say, you know what, you're right, I don't. But let me tell you about the life that I lived. Because Paul, if you aren't familiar with Paul, started out as a man named Saul. He was a Roman citizen. He was taught in the scriptures. He was taught to be a Pharisee. And as Paul says, he out-Pharisied all the Pharisees. He out-Jewed all the Jews. He was like the best one that there was. He was so devout in things that he did. He was the best of all the Pharisees. Paul clearly did not have a self-esteem issue at all. He was the best there was. And when the Jesus movement came along, and they called it the Way, he was so convinced that they were blasphemous, he took it upon himself as his singular mission to get rid of all of them by any means necessary. And he does for years. Travels around, has them beaten, has them thrown in jail, has some of them put to death. I mean, he's on a mission to get rid of all these Jesus follower Christian people until he becomes one. And then he spends the last 30 years of his life traveling all of these dusty, dirty roads, telling everybody who Jesus is. Can you imagine the difference in his life? And as he travels, there's places that he's rejected. People go, I don't want to hear anything about this Jesus guy, especially when he says, hey, God raised him from the dead. And they're like, whatever, you got to get out of here with that mess. And so he travels to other places. Even among the Jesus followers, he is rejected by some because they know of his previous life. And they go, has he really been converted? Is that really a true story? How do we know he's not on a spy mission where he's pretending to be a Christian to come find out where we all are and have us all killed? So even among the Jesus followers, most of them reject him early on as well, let alone the non-Jesus followers who could care less what he has to say. But Paul keeps on moving from town to town and place to place. There's places where not only is he rejected, he's beaten. People take offense to what he has to say, and they actually beat him. One time he's actually stoned. When you gather rocks and you throw it at people until they die, he's stoned in one place, and he's completely unconscious. They figure out he's dead, so they drag his dead body out of the city and just throw it on the heap out there, which is what they do. They don't bury you. They don't give you any ceremonial cleansing. They just drag you out and throw you on the heap pile, and they walk off figuring he's dead. Well, he's not dead. He comes to, regains consciousness, looks around, dusts himself off, and hops up and heads to the next town, or at least something like that. There's places where he's shipwrecked. He's traveling on a boat and it has a major storm. They're shipwrecked on an island for a while. He survives all that. He survives going in places. He's been put in jail because he's preaching about who Jesus is, and they put him in stocks and lock him up in jail. And jail's not like our country where you get to work out in the gym and have 3 meals a day and watch TV. It ain't like that at all. It's like a cell. It's like a dungeon. You're in there. And this is happening to him as a Roman citizen, which is a whole cool conversation we'll have on another day, why he lets that happen to himself. I mean, this is the life that Paul endures. And he has the nerve to say, be thankful in all of your circumstances. Paul would say, be thankful in them. No matter what you're going through, there is something to be thankful for, because Paul would write in these letters, he'd say, look, all the things I've gone through, all the junk I've dealt with, I am thankful that you have prayed for me. He would tell the other communities of faith, I'm thankful that you've prayed for me. Many of you have experienced that same power. when you have endured and dealt with some of the things that have gone on in your life, you have felt the power that others have been praying on your behalf. He would write to people and say, hey, I am thankful. While he's sitting in jail being beaten and tortured and starved, he would write letters and say, I am thankful while I'm sitting in jail for your faithfulness. I hear from Timothy, as he does in Thessalonica. Timothy tells him, hey, because Thessalonica kicked him out as well. And Timothy comes in, and Timothy writes and says, hey, Paul, you aren't going to believe it. Those people that one time they kicked you out of the town, when they got rid of you for preaching about Jesus, there's actually a group of people who are following Jesus, and it's awesome, and they're faithful, and they're generous, and they're kind, and they're doing all the things. And Paul would say, I am thankful that I hear of the goodness and the faithfulness that you are displaying. It ain't helping me none. I'm still hungry and painful, suffering in jail. But while I'm doing all that, I am thankful for your faithfulness. Can you imagine the thankfulness and the humility it takes to be punished and beaten and brutalized, and in the middle of that, actually sing songs of praise and worship and give thanks because of other people's faithfulness? Not a faithfulness that's going to get you out of jail. Not a faithfulness that's going to send you a pizza, but they're living faithful lives. Paul would say you have so much to be thankful for. No matter what you're going through, no matter what your circumstances are, no matter how life unfolds, no matter how disappointed, no matter how much failure is, no matter how much it hurts, no matter what the tragedy is, there's always something to find to be thankful for if you're willing to look. So, in the words of Paul, let me encourage you in the next days and week as Thanksgiving unfolds, wherever you happen to be, whoever you happen to be with, whatever food you happen to have. It was suggested for my family to have sushi for Thanksgiving. I'm like, I ain't going for sushi, man. I like sushi. Like, who in their right mind? No, it's a whole other call. Some of you might be going, that sounds awesome. I was like, oh. Wherever you are, whoever you're with, whatever conversation topics come up, whatever you happen to be doing during Thanksgiving, make sure you spend a few minutes being prayerful, being joyous, and being thankful. And being thankful in all the things that you get to experience. Because you and I truly have so much to be thankful for. Amen.